Anyway, so this evening we are in sunny Somerset. As people know now, the land of my birth. Noel's yawning.
Here she goes again. Here she goes again.
It's the best county in England.
Do you ever hear me banging on about Reading and Berkshire?
No, we don't, Noel, and for good reason, really. Anyway, so Somerset. Yeah, we're in sunny Somerset, sunny Sherborne, in fact, in Somerset.
Actually, sunny Dorset, actually.
Oh, sunny Dorset. I do beg your pardon. I do beg your pardon.
Yeah. I'll be kicked out of town.
I was going to say Dorset borders. Perhaps you could.
Very close.
Yeah, very close to Somerset. Anyway, we're talking to Paul Strickland. Paul, hello. Paul and his wife run Black Shed Flowers or Black Shed Farm? Black Shed
Flowers, yeah.
Black Shed Flowers, that's right. But Paul, before we talk about your flower farm, I just want to talk a little bit about your sort of your backstory, really, not but also just tell us what have you been doing? What were you doing before you got into flowers?
I mean, since I left college, I've been an unbelievably busy illustrator of children's books and all sorts of things, actually. Mm-hmm. So children's author and illustrator, and I design pop-up books.
Right.
All of which hasn't really been particularly useful in the in the horticultural line, but it's actually lots of it has been quite useful, really, because it's all about colour, it's all about form and shape and design and all that sort of thing. And so it's a slightly unusual route. Helen is a bookseller and also a musician, and so once again, Helen doesn't really have the qualifications to go do this. So it was a bit of a plunge into the unknown for us.
Right.
And this happened about 6 years ago.
Right.
So after roughly 40 years sitting on my bottom in the studio, combined with some fairly extreme gardening, we found ourselves with this flower farm. Now, when Helen and I first got together, we did promise that we'd have a life absolutely surrounded by flowers, but we had no idea it was going to be like this.
Oh, really? So were you both avid gardeners at that point?
Yes, I think it's fair to say. I think I might be slightly more avid gardener of the two of us, and I've had time and space to be able to do that. But and within a very small radius of here, I'm gardening on pure rock, on ghastly, impenetrable soil. And now we've got a gorgeous field full of wonderful alluvial soil, and I'm going to be really hated if I tell you how.
No, just rub it in. And I know we spoke back in the autumn. I was quite keen to get you on, and you said, "Oh no, I can't at the moment. I'm in Singapore, and you were teaching paper folding. Is that correct?"
Yes, teaching paper engineering at an international school out in Singapore. It's something which I've done for years, and I've developed a practice which works very well with children with special needs, and it's entirely doesn't need language. So it works with children who don't have English as the first language. So it's brilliant, and I really couldn't give that up. It's just something I love doing.
And I'm not sure whether your talk will include this, but I know when we were chatting the other day, you were talking about how children are very important to you in terms of obviously writing for children to start with, and then and your sort of past career, but also about engaging with children in the flower and the horticultural world as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real passion. It's in the work that I've done with children. I've spent a lot of time working with children with special needs and children who really don't want to be in a classroom. And so we've made ourselves available to anybody who wants to use the garden. The garden's always been open to the public. But we especially want children to come in, and we have had special needs children in. There's always a problem with funding for having enough staff on site to be able to look after. But the joy and delight of having children, just deadheading or looking at seeds and so on, fantastic. So completely open to anybody coming in. Quiet time in the garden.
And also I know that you were we've talked about this too, that you're quite a rare species because you're a male flower farmer, and I know that you were hosting the was it the Flowers from the Farm conference in Bristol, and I think you were saying that there were like 350 attendees, of which there were 3 men. Is that correct?
I think yes, it's 3, possibly even 5.
Oh really? All right, we're a gang of you then.
A very substantial minority. Bless it. It was fantastic, actually. Although some of the time I felt like I was in Challenge Annika because rushing around with the microphone to get responses to people. But yeah, it was a fantastic conference. Brilliant. Flowers on the Farm are very important to us.
Yeah.
We've been members of Flowers on the Farm since they had very few people.
Right.
And membership's way up.
Yeah.
But it's a great organisation. It's been a huge help to us.
Great. And are they based in Bristol, Flowers on the Farm? Is that
no? I don't think they've got a specific base as such. But yeah, Bristol was the chosen place for the conference this year.
Yes.
So we were in the Temple to Tobacco, the Wills Museum,
right,
which was quite something.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
It was a fascinating thing, and to meet a whole bunch of other flower farmers was wonderful.
Yeah,
and to walk into a room where within moments you're discussing mold on ranunculus leaves. Some other really obscure little geeky niche interest.
Fantastic. Oh. Well, Paul, it's great to finally get hold of you, and let's go into your lecture, your talk, and I think you're taking us through your year, aren't you? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just to give us a little bit of structure. The Flower Farmers year really doesn't start or end anywhere, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
So I've chosen a rather arbitrary point, but either way, shall I sort of switch on?
If you go into screen share, that would be fantastic, and I'm going to go on to mute so that it's over to you then.
Okay, brilliant.
I'll just leave it. I'll leave myself on until I know, just to say that we're okay and we've got you. So
how are we doing? Brilliant. Right.
Yep, looking good.
Marvelous. Let's go back to the beginning of the presentation. Right, it began with the dahlia. It totally began with dahlias. Helen and I, we have a very small garden in Sherborne, 4 meters by 8 meters. It doesn't mean that it's not absolutely rammed full of plants, but there's nowhere to grow big dahlias or anything like that. It's a shady little back garden. So we got ourselves our first allotment, and basically we went and lived on it. So Tabitha, our daughter, spent pretty much all of her childhood on the allotment. Now, we're not proper allotmenteers. We don't grow cabbages. We don't double dig. We don't do any of those things. We got told off for having wildflowers on the plot and a pond and a beautiful shed. Either way, we ended up with 3 allotments because there isn't a demand for it in Sherborne, amazingly. And instead of growing beans and whatever vegetables, we ended up growing largely dahlias and sweet peas. And our daughter Tabitha did rather a good trade in selling excess dahlias and sweet peas on the windowsill of our house in Sherborne, to such extent that by the end of one summer, she made £150, which was, you can hear giggling in the background. It was most impressive effort, really, and I don't think it's been beaten since. Anyway, we were a bit jealous. We thought, blimey, we could do something about this. I had been reading Georgie Newberry's wonderful book, Sarah Raven's book, and we've been keeping a very, very close eye on floret, obviously in Pacific Northwest. And so the idea of flower farming was slowly installing itself in us. Either way, dahlias we grew aplenty, and the year when things really kicked off, Hell ordered me an enormous amount of dahlias. We had way too many dahlias, and rather than just growing them, we were playing with them. I was photographing them. I've always loved photographing things, and dahlias were particularly interesting to me to do. So we were playing around with styling ideas and just messing around with fields of colour. So yes, not your traditional allotmenteers. And so messing around with styling things. We got hundreds of bottles and just messing about. Come the day, we were asked to produce an installation of dahlias for a gig that Helen was doing at Epe Church down on the coast for Bridport Open Studios. And we were asked to do a dahlia installation. And this was part of the dahlia installation. Now, if you can see very closely, you probably can't at the bottom, it says Dahlias by Tabitha and in tiny writing, Paul Strickland. And either way, we put this photo up on Instagram, and the next day we got an order. Lovely florist, Sarah from Sprout and Flower and Mia, she phoned up and said, do you sell these dahlias? And we think, oh, blimey. Well, yes, having no idea how much we were going to charge for them or anything. Anyway, I put, she wanted about 50, and I think I put 250 in the van, and I took uncharacteristic care in laying them out in a beautiful spectral range of colours, and she bought most of them. It was absolutely fantastic. We thought, oh, blimey, this is interesting. And then we did a big party, and suddenly we were thinking, well, shall we, shan't we? So we went and we started approaching people to see if anybody had a piece of land. Now we have no money, so you know it's one of these things. We had to find a piece of land, and we approached our friends, farmers Peter and Amanda Hunt here in Sherborne, and said, "You wouldn't by any chance like a flower farm in your carving field?" And to our complete surprise, they said yes. And at which point they said, "Go away, make yourself a business plan," which we did. We subsequently completely ignored it. But either way, this was the very beginning of Black Shed. Now, we were going to be called Black Shed even before we had the site. We still haven't got around to having a Black Shed. We're based out of these grain silos that you can see in the middle of the picture. Maybe one day we'll have a Black Shed, but I'm not sure. Either way, it was the name really appealed. So we were offered this field and we dug a hole. And we realized at that stage that in the river valley where this farm is situated, we have fabulous topsoil. It's nearly neutral. We've got the runoff of the green sand hills around us. So the soil is absolutely gorgeous. No stones, as you can see. Everybody will hate me from now on. but the joy is we have got this fantastic soil. And that's the principal thing which has allowed us to move forward so quickly. Now, we did have it ploughed. I'm not quite sure whether I would have done that now, but because it obviously disturbed the top foot or so of soil, and we had it ploughed and we had it power harrowed. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get rid of all the couch grass, so we managed to split up the couch grass into innumerable fragments. Either way, we're dealing with that still. So it was a large site we were offered. We were offered 5 acres altogether, and there you can see the family with our actually rather new looking rakes, and not looking quite as fit as we do now. So we, looking at the 5 acres, we thought this is way too large for us. And so being sensible, we fenced off an acre and then started on 1/3 of an acre. We laid it all out, as you can see, with hazard tape. Google cameras very kindly flew over that night, took a photograph of it. So we've got this wonderful record of the farm at that stage. And so what we did is we had a completely blank canvas. There's not a thing on the site. There's none of the shrubs or trees you might want. So we laid it out in a very rectilinear fashion. You can see we use landscape fabric to provide our paths. And the beds are all of a pretty much uniform size. They're 1 metre wide, 4 or 8 metres long. And that's really helpful. It enables us to work out how many flowers we need per square metre and so on. Some people do grow through landscape fabric, burn holes in the landscape fabric. It's a nightmare, and it makes for an absolute hotel for voles, bindweed, nettles, whatever you may choose, couch grass and so on. So this is the basic layout of the farm before we took on the next acre. And the first year we had to start out really quickly to get things going. So it was mostly dahlias and quite a lot of seed sown stuff. But yeah, it was a very slow start. We obviously had to lay all the grass and things like that. But anyway, we were busy from day one. It was quite extraordinary. We really weren't expecting it. Helen was still working at the bookshop. I was able to spend all my time on the farm. We very quickly became slightly overwhelmed. And so we had woofers and workawares. So woofers is worldwide working on organic farms, and it's a way of finding people who want to learn skills and want to learn flower farming. And we're not actually organic, but we do practice best practice. We don't use chemicals, any fungicides, pesticides, or any artificial fertilizers either. And either way, we were super busy from the beginning. We had a lot of lovely workwares and woofers, and we soon began to attract attention of all the lovely florists and that we have working in the area. And we work in conjunction with Kingston Moorwood horticultural and floristry departments. So we have a lot of their students come to work with us, do their work placement. And we have found some absolutely outstanding students from Kingston Moorwood. two of whom are now on the books with us, which is great. We've got a fantastic gardener called Jack, who splits his time between the kitchen garden at the farm and the flower farm. And he's a fantastic young man with a really amazing work ethic, and lovely Faith, who's a florist working with us, Lisa. And then we've got Sue, who's another florist. So there's quite a few of us now. And Helen and I are obviously full-time on this. So we're not just a flower farm. We do a full range of floristry as well. So we would probably do about 60 weddings a year. We're very well known for our funeral work. And then we're open to the public. So we'll have people coming in, picking their own or ringing out for a bouquet. Frankly, anything to do with flowers, we'll get involved. So this gives you a little idea of the way the field's looking at the moment. You can't see our polytunnel there. It is there. But either way, yeah, we grow in huge quantities. Made a terrible mistake at the beginning by having 50-centimetre wide paths. There was, I think, I could squeeze more onto the site. No, not a good idea. You really need to have nice wide paths. So we made that mistake and then learned from that one. So here's, this is what the flower farm is looking like at the moment. And we're beautifully set. We borrow a little bit of landscape from Sherborne Castle Estates, who are just off in the misty background there. There's a capability brown landscaped gardens there, so we catch that slightly. So it's a very gently sloping site. And as I say, we've got fantastic soil. And our principal focus, and it always has been for me, is soil and soil quality, soil life. So as I say, we don't use any chemicals, but we do use inordinately huge quantities of mulch. And at the moment, we're using digestate from a fantastic farm up the road. And the digestate is working very well for us. We'll use probably 50 tonnes a year on this site. And the principal idea is not to let the soil be exposed to the air at all, really. Whenever the soil is bare, we will cover it with fresh mulch. So there you go. Right, this is our silo. We're based in a grain silo. It's absolutely boiling hot in the summer and absolutely freezing cold in the winter. But it's a perfect place for drying flowers. And that's a large part of what we do. Again, not something we expected to do. We were very naive when we started this. We had no idea of the possibilities. And dried flowers came about because a fantastic, terribly well-known florist came along and was poking about my compost heap. And she said, you're not throwing these away, are you? And I sort of rapidly retracted on my steps, saying, no, they're just resting there. She said, because I want to buy those. And I went to Helen and I said, she's just bought our compost heap. This is absolutely wonderful. Do you think we should be doing dried flowers? And so dried flowers became quite a thing. So these grain silos, we've got the one next door as well. We've got 2 grain silos. And at the moment, they're rammed full of fantastic flowers. We will try and dry anything. If it stands still for more than 5 minutes, it'll get hung up and dried. And at the moment, it's full of statice and helichrysum. But actually anything. We'll try anything and everything to see if we can get good results out of it. And this really helps us to share our summer throughout the winter. And it spreads the load, but there is still a huge demand for dried flowers, which is fantastic. Either way, this is our lovely silo. I'm very fond of our silo, despite its impractical parts. So I suppose we're going to leap into the flower farming year now. March is when our first crops really start. Now, we've been working very hard to close the gap between late October, early November and March. People are so much more aware nowadays of seasonal flowers and local flowers that we are beginning to get people to accept a very different type of bouquet in the winter. Now we've learned how to condition hellebores, which is a major turnaround for us. We'll use those pretty much throughout the winter. So we grow a lot of willow as well, lots and lots of eucalyptus, which keeps us going all the way through the winter. So anyway, our first special crop really every year are the Iceland poppies. Now these are fantastic, absolutely wonderful crop, easy as anything to grow, very cold tolerant. We got our first flowers this year around the beginning of March. And then we were cutting between 25 and 100 stems for 16 weeks, right the way up into June. So fantastic crop and an absolute must buy for our customers. We leave a big vase of that on the table at the studio in the silo, and people just want them. So yeah, fantastic thing for us. Poppies, as you may know, don't last very long in the vase, but if you sear the bottoms after you've cut them, you will get 7, maybe even 10 days out of these Iceland poppies. It works with all poppies, even field poppies. So your Amazing Greys, your Cedric Morris, lovely cool cloud colours, they will last a bit longer. These have been bred to last longer, and they are fantastic. And we can send these mail order as well. So as long as we pick them at exactly the right moment, sear the bottoms, we can send them by post very easily. And yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous colours. These seeds came from Rachel Siegfried at Green and Gorgeous, who is a fantastic source of seeds that you know are going to work for a flower farmer. So go to Green and Gorgeous and choose. They've always got a range of interesting perennials and grasses and things. So, oh, sorry, going the right direction. Yes, nothing better. 3 gorgeous, twisty Iceland poppies. Yeah. An absolute seller for us, followed by ranunculus. Now I'm just about sorting out the ranunculus right now. They're going to go into crates soon. They go into the polytunnel as well as outside. Ranunculus are a bit tricky to grow. They like a lot of water, but they don't like their claws to be in water. So we grow them in trays of peat-free compost, mushroom trays, about 8 to a tray, a double quincunx, and then we let them root through into our polytunnel soil below, and they absolutely adore that. So we get fantastic stem length. We get about nearly 60 centimetre stem length, and in this fantastic range of colours. One of those flowers I never really knew about as a gardener, but as a flower farmer, you realise how essential they are for you. So we have several thousand of these coming next week, actually, along with some butterfly ranuncs, which we're going to try for the first time, see how those go. And we've also saved claws from last year as well, because they're just such a fantastic crop and they multiply really well. And in fact, we have got a couple flowering right now. So I think they could be a cool autumn crop as well. So we're going to look at that in future. Again, just delicious colours. These are French ones from Comptoir Paulinois. Italian ones are lovely as well. This is one of our surprises this year. Who knew that the pansy was going to be so popular? I grew 2 packets of antique shades from lovely Plants of Distinction, little realizing how popular they were going to be. I think I had 9 plants. We must have sold 500-600 stems of these over the course of the spring, and hugely popular. And they had about 12-15-inch stems by the end of the season. So yeah, I'll be trying lots more pansies this year, and they last. They really last well. They've got a delicate scent too, and some gorgeous, gorgeous antique colours. Right, I'm skipping through to April, and April is the month of tulips for us. This would have been shot in November. We plant everything as late as we can, and they are planted in a huge trench, so shoulder to shoulder. They've got all the energy they need in their bulbs already, so we don't really need to treat them too much. So we do get a shallow trench, 1 metre wide, 8 metres long, and you can probably get 2,000 to 3,000 bulbs in there easily. And we treat them as an annual. Sometimes we pull them up with the bulbs on, because if you pull them up with the bulbs on, they stay in the development stage that they are when you pull them up. Then when you cut the bulbs off, a couple of weeks later, maybe, they will suddenly open up. That's quite useful sometimes. But they're a big investment, and a slightly scary investment, because even with the best planning, you're not going to get early, mid-season and late. They tend to all come at once, and you end up with 10,000 tulips to get rid of, which is an interesting challenge. But again, they're brilliant, because like ranunculus and Iceland poppies, they can be sent by mail order. And this is how we got through COVID, actually. is by turning ourselves into a mail order company. I put one story up on Instagram saying, does anybody want any tulips? The moment lockdown started. And next time I looked, we had 50 orders. Unfortunately, we didn't have any packaging, sticker, printer, or anything else like that at the time. So we had to get up to speed really quickly. But we ended up not only selling the 10,000 tulips we had, but we then bought from other flowers and the farm members further up country. We bought their tulips. We ended up selling 19,000 tulips that spring. I doubt we'll ever have a season like that again, but it was the year of sending flowers to everybody. And yeah, we were quick and nimble on our feet, and we managed to sort of get on and make the most of that. We try not to grow normal tulips. We try to grow the best, the tall, the lovely, the Avignons, the Montans, the Dordogne, parrots, viridifloras, all that sort of thing. Parrots, this is Estelle Reinveld. She's remarkably weather resistant, really surprises me. So we grow half of our tulips inside in crates, rooting through into our greenhouse soil, and the other half outside. And if we're lucky, that'll spread the season a little bit. These are apricot dream, or apricot, one of the apricots. These ones have almost 6-inch flowers, huge, absolutely huge, and a fantastic scent. And my temptation to go and walk around Waitrose with a bunch of those and holding them next to their squinny little water growing things is so tempting, but so far I've managed to resist. Yeah, viridifloras like spring green, marvelous. It's also the month for anemones. So we grow a lot of fantastic anemones. These are Galilean anemones, so bred in Israel, specifically for the cut flower trade. They've got fantastic long stems. They have the slight disadvantage of being absolutely delectable to aphids. And whilst many things like ranuncula's can withstand a little bit of aphid damage, anemones really can't. And one bite will ruin an anemone. So we do have to watch out for green fly in the tunnel, not so much outside. We rely on predators, but they usually come, you usually have to wait a bit. So it's a lot of figures and squashing or high pressure jets. The Galilean anemones are so exquisite. The color breeding they've got, it's not just the bold, bright reds, purples, whites of before. You can get all manner of subtle colors, and the details just gorgeous. So yeah, big fan of anemones. And yeah, you can see some of the color range there. Fritillaries, we would love to grow more fritillaries. Unfortunately, the lily beetle has completely decimated the one patch that was self-seeding very nicely. We've got a nice boggy area and it was getting going, and the lily beetles have found it. So I think we've got to abandon that, as we trialed lilies and we've abandoned those as well, because we just can't deal with that. Ixias, I'm a huge fan of Ixias. They're one of the cheapest bulbs to buy, and they're a fantastically cheerful cut flower with their lovely wiry stems. They've got a lovely grace to them and add movement to arrangements. So Ixias are gorgeous. I have got a big basket of Ixia viridiflora, which, if you know, is one of the most gorgeous things ever. But yeah, Ixias are great at that time of year. So we're on into May now, and outside begins to kick in. So we've still got anemones. You can see the first cornflowers coming through there, Orlea. We grow Orlea in the tunnel, much easier in the tunnel. You don't get parrot root fly, and that's fine. The foliage you can see in the background is Thalictrum, and poor Thalictrums in our garden get stripped bare because their foliage is fantastic for bouquets. But it's also one of those things that florists don't see. So when we entice florists onto the site to come and see what we've got, they are just blown away by Thalictrum. So we grow a huge range of different Thalictrum. Yeah, very popular. Where are we? A little flat lay of some of the things in May. We've got cornflowers. We've got the first of the scabious. The middle flower is Verbascum violetta. Lovely thing, seeds itself everywhere. Little Linaria. We do love a Linaria. And then the first of the delphiniums. And delphiniums are very big for us. Helen is the queen of the delphiniums. There's the Orlea. Now we grow Orlea. It's just got a bit more substance than Ami, but we would like to grow Ami, but unfortunately Helen is very allergic to Ami and develops photosensitive blisters, much like you'd get with giant hogweed. And we're always worried that perhaps a bride, we do a lot of do-it-yourself wedding flowers for brides, and were a bride to get to have a similar reaction, it's the last thing you want to be wandering up the aisle with great big wheels on your arm. So yeah, we're always looking for new umbellifers, and at the moment, Orlais is the best one for us. Cornflowers we grow. It's one of those flowers I'd rather not grow in some ways, because it's a nightmare to cut. The first couple of weeks you get gorgeous long strong stems, but after that you're fighting your way through the undergrowth to try and get decent things. So it's one of those things, when we get an order in for 100 cornflowers, everybody looks the other way or suddenly finds another job to do. But at the same time, you've kind of got to go with them, because they're one of those flowers that everybody knows and everybody asks for. So yeah, we do. There's the dreaded Annie, and yeah, it would be lovely to grow it, but we just can't risk an allergic reaction with people. So delphiniums, yeah, big part of what we do. These white ones, we have this particular variety we've stopped growing now. We find that we get much worse mildew with white and paler delphiniums. So we've knocked this one on the head now, and we've moved on to the most magnificent New Zealand New Millennium hybrids, which are absolutely spectacular, and I'll show you in a second. Arum lilies, we grow those in the tunnel in big fish tanks with lots of fish. Very nice. If you can try to persuade flies from spotting them, which they seem to love doing, but I suppose it's the scent which pulls them towards them. Alströmerias. Now, this is a chalk and cheese plant. Lots of people have got opinions about Alströmerias. I love them. I really love them. I love the fact they're so productive. That really works for me. And I love the fact that there are some very subtle varieties. This variety we were given by a wonderful plantswoman, Jane Edmonds, who used to run a nursery in Pencilwood in Somerset. And she rang up one day and said, I've got to leave my flower field. Would you like some flowers? Would you like some plants? Bring a van. And I thought, oh, good Lord. And Jane was incredibly generous, and she gave us some really superb varieties. And this Alströmeria, which we don't know the name of, is one of them. And it's the Alströmeria which turns florists' minds away from disliking Alströmerias, you see what I mean? So they'll come in hating them and they'll leave with an armful, hopefully. So another set of flowers really that predominate May. The front, Omphaliotes linifolia. My very first Omphaliotes linifolia came from Laurie and Sandra Pope, who are huge friends and deeply inspirational people, actually. And their time at Hadspen, well, we spent a lot of time with them at Hadspen, and I worked with Norrie, and great friends. And Norrie introduced me to so many plants. Omphaliotes linifolia is a plant you don't see in the trade, and florists just love it. It's rugged, but it's so delicate. And even when the flowers fall, the calyxes behind are these gorgeous sage green. So lovely thing. You'll see Iceland poppies in the background here, first of the Veronicas. I think we've probably got some Camasias in the back. Camasias are gorgeous. I would love some of Avon Bulb's wonderful opal coloured and purple coloured Camasias. Very fleeting, but gorgeous all the same. So galloping through into June, suddenly flowers coming out of our ears. It's marvelous. So lots of delphiniums. Lupins, we grow as many lupins. Everybody loves lupins. They're, again, one of those plants which you take them to the market and you can guarantee a sale. We do suffer quite badly from lupin aphid. This year we had them right at the beginning of the year, and for some reason or other they haven't come back at the end of the year. So we've got a fantastic crop of lupins at the moment, and yeah, florists love them, and which is great. So we've got the foxgloves here, the stranchas, lots of grasses. We go tons and tons of grasses. That's bunnytails ligurus, red buttons pennisetum, all sorts of different grasses. Again, a lot of these perennials are grown from seed, and I tend to do most of my perennial seed shopping from Gelito in Germany. Their seeds are exceptional. They germinate, which is really good. Now, these are, again, bought from, the seed bought from Gelito seeds. These are the new Millennium hybrids. They come in the most fantastic range of colours. I think it was Dr. Keith Hamlet, or either way, it was used to be called Dadswell delphiniums, now New Zealand delphiniums, but the seed's available from Gelito. And in the most fantastic range of colours, they've been bred to be heat and cold resistant, but also mildew resistant. So, you know, at this time of the year, most of our delphiniums are looking a bit mildewy. These are still looking good. This is our first cut this year. We cut them right down to the ground whenever we sell them and give them a water and a mulch. It should be said we don't water at all, except when we cut back. And now we've got a second showing of delphiniums just as good as this, and in a slightly more manageable size. These were probably about 6, 7 foot, whereas now they're coming 3, 4 foot. But they're fantastic plants. And yeah, so these would have been sown last September, which is extraordinary. Scabious, absolute backbone of what we do, and terrifically productive. We grow the varieties Perfecta and also Fama, F-A-M-A, in blue and white. Expensive seed, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Doesn't stop flowering as long as you cut them right deep down into the heart of the plant. And then they'll produce fresh flowers right the way through the season. So yeah, they're real stalwarts for us, as is Nigel. Planted once and you never need to plant it again. We've got lots of different varieties. They're brilliant for drying, and everybody loves Love in the Mist. Although I heard another name for Love, I better not say what it is actually. A lovely old lady came up with a slight euphemism for Love in the Mist. Either way, very useful. Laryngiums. This is seed from the wonderful Derry Watkins at Special Plants, who I will drive miles out of my way to go and see her. Yeah, she's wonderful. She disappeared off into the garden when we asked for seed of this and picked us absolutely fresh seed, which is key with this particular one. And this has become an absolute stalwart. It is the prickliest thing we grow, apart from Eryngium pandanifolium, which we have got rid of now because it is too prickly for words. So we grow a lot of different Eryngiums, and brought in a lot of special varieties from Holland. This is a plant that you don't often see, but is terrifically popular, and it's a brilliant cut. It's Galenia trifoliata, again from seed from Gelito. Very productive. Florists never see it, and so when they see this and it cuts brilliantly, it's very, very popular. So we have a very big patch of that, and it started self-sowing all over the plot, as have so many other things, such as Amazing Grey here. We had to grow Amazing Grey. It's not much use. It doesn't last very long in the vase, but for the few days that it does last, it's brilliant. This is a selection of Veronica called Pink Damask. Easily the best pink Veronica there is. It's not very tall, but it's terrifically productive, and there is always a fresh flower on this plant. Now we grow probably a 16-meter length a bed of these, which we will ideally give the Chelsea chop on a couple of occasions so that we get a flow of flowers throughout the year. And it doesn't disappoint. It's worth looking for named varieties of Veronicas. There are lots of whites out there. We found a really good one. I think it came from Howard Nurseries. But the named varieties are much better than growing them from seed, which can be a bit squinny. Sweet peas. Yes, everybody loves sweet peas, except us. They take an awful lot of hard work. It's 20 minutes of your day, 30 minutes of your day that you're never going to get back. But we have to have them because people want them. We sell them as big bunches all the time. They just fly out to all the people that come and see us. We use them a lot if we're doing house decorations. We use them as trails. So cut off, a 60 centimeter, meter long trail, and that way they last for much, much longer. And the flowers come out in succession, which is great. And despite the fact that they're the most tangly things ever, it's surprising how you can fit them together in a bouquet. This particular one is for a rather unusual Russian client of ours who phones up and asks for his entire house to be filled with flowers, whether or not he's going to be there. And yes, we've done a lot of interesting work with him. Let's go into July. Here's Helen, lovely Helen, in the midst of a sea of larkspur and antirrhinums. We grow a lot of antirrhinums. It's rust versus us for the antirrhinums. We know we're going to get rust sooner or later in the year. We've just got it, but we've had a fantastic long flowering season before the rust kicked in. We grow the varieties Potomac, which are especially bred for for cut flowers. Very, very good. We grow the Madam Butterfly ones, which I'm not so keen on, and the Chantilly ones, where they've opened the flower up into, it gives you a block of colour, but it's nothing like a proper snapping mouth of a snapdragon. There we are. Larkspur, one of the more cussed plants to grow. It seems to come up where it wants to, as opposed to where we want it to. This year we had fantastic germination. It's not always the case. These were some flowers which we cut for the fantastic florist Tatty Rose, who we work with a lot. She wanted some flowers for a wedding in Scotland in a castle. I think it was a Jordanian royal family. And she came wandering up the garden, saw our row of larkspur and said, "Can I have that row?" And then looking the other way, said, "Can I have that row too? But can I have them as complete plants?" Now, they were going through 2 layers of netting. So we had to take the netting off and cut them at the base and put them in individual containers. We've never seen what they look like in the final wedding, because all the cameras were taken away. But I'm sure Tatty would have done an amazing job with them. Foxgloves are a huge part of what we grow. Foxgloves are brilliant in all arrangements. We grow all the species, the luteas, the Ferruginea, Parviflora. These ones are Dalmatian peach. We also grow Sutton's apricot and the white biennial ones. But the principal ones we grow are the Camelot series, which have had the day length bred out of them, so that they will flower approximately 110 days after they germinated. And you can sow them in succession. So we will be sowing foxgloves pretty much year round. And we will expect to have foxgloves from May through till November. And at the moment, they're looking gorgeous. We find that with the Camelot seed, which is expensive, but it's very good and it does come up, the second generation seed throws up the most fantastic colours and taller as well. So we do a mix of first generation seed and second generation seed. And then we get an awful lot of seedlings coming up too. And either way. So part of the dried offering we do, there are, this is, the white flower is Xeranthemum annuum, which is an absolutely gorgeous thing, also in pinks and purples. Not to be confused with the ghastly Xeranthemum cylindricum, which is a plant nobody should allow in their garden, should come with a health warning. It can outcompete grass. It's a nightmare. So yeah, don't ever let Xeranthemum cylindricum into your house. Along with this, the celosia here, this is a celosia called flamingo feathers or spicata, and hypericum, which come in a wide range of colours now. Thalictrum, the gorgeous Thalictrum, always popular. This is another one of our arrangements for our Russian, with a ridiculous number of stems in a flaring glass vase. We managed to teach him to stop using widely opening vases like this. Yeah, that made life a bit easier. Rudbeckias. So these start in June, July, and will go right through to the frosts. I love them. This is from the Sahara series. Very easy to grow, and yeah, we have a great long row of those. It doesn't seem to be a yellowy brown year though. It's a peaches and pinks and whites year this year. So there's an awful lot of yellow and brown on the field at the moment, but glorious things. They all come true from seed. And again, so fantastic range of forms. Chimney are the ones that look like chimney sweets brushes. Cherry brandy is the bottom one with the sort of deep red petals. And so, yeah, this time of the year, we're looking at warmer colours, although it's surprising. There are still blues, pale blues and things on the field. In this one, you can see we are growing common flax, mainly for the seed heads. The flowers are a little bit too fleeting to be of any use. We've got Cosmea there, and red hot pokers, which are tremendously popular. Everybody loves the red hot pokers, so it was something of a surprise to me. But again, great cut flower, lovely range of colours. Right, August. Okay, so this might be a typical do-it-yourself wedding bucket. With all our brides and grooms, we invite them to the farm. We make sure that they come to see us 2 weeks before the date of their wedding, so that we can literally walk around the field and choose their flowers, something which they find immensely exciting. And yeah, it's wonderful to watch them. And you can see potential gardening partnerships being made in front of your eyes. So yeah, do-it-yourself weddings are a big thing. So here we've got some of the range of grasses we grow: Pennisetum macrolorum. We've got the common rush, Phragmites australis. What else have we got in there? I think we've got some Panicum warrior possibly, and Limonium. Limonium we love because it's incredibly easy to grow. We grow Statice for all the coloured heads, but we also grow all the species Limoniums as well. This one is simple. What is it? Platyphyllum, the sea lavender. But we also grow Limonium perettii, which is a fantastic. So it's a tender perennial. But the hardy Limonium gemellini is an absolute gem, purple flowers, as is Statis tartaricum and Limonium calinum, which both have fantastically architectural flower heads. And again, easy as anything, and don't even bat an eyelid at the heat that we had last year. Not a very brilliant photograph, but this is Artemisia elfenbein, which I saw at the wonderful Arvensis perennials in Bradford-upon-Avon, and thought that's a cut flower if ever I saw one, and it's proved to be very, very useful. As has the Pusidanum in front, the Pusidanum verticillari, I think, which is, yes, we're always looking for new umbellifers, and that's one that is a fantastic dried. So we're growing that as a large statement dried. This year, I've had to swallow my contempt for Chinese asters because actually they've been brilliant this year. I was very sniffy about the old Chinese asters that had their yellow centers and rather coarse colors. But some of the breeding that's gone on is fantastic. So this lovely, I think it's lilac mist or something. And some of the apricots, absolutely gorgeous. Long, strong stems, a really lovely ruff of leaves around the base of the flowers. And yeah, they were on my chucking out list last year, whereas I've completely changed my mind this year with those. So they get space in the polytunnel, they do, which is premium. Right, dahlias. We hit dahlias. So it all started with dahlias for us, and it's still a really big part of what we do. We probably grow around 500 to 600 plants. We cuttings. So we will single out from the plants of any given year the best plants. You know, we may have a dozen plants of any given variety. There's always one that's much, much better. And we will label that one carefully and then dig that up in January, put it on a heat mat, and take cuttings from the shoots which arise from that. We do that because the quality of the stems, the quality of the flowers, the richness and thickness of the petals is so much better if you grow from cuttings. And we discovered that whilst delivering some flowers to a client, and that client had been and bought some dahlias from Richard Withypits, and Richard is a fine grower, and I couldn't believe the quality of his flowers compared to ours. And so we tracked him down and said, "How do you do it?" And he said, "Well, it's cuttings." And there is no doubt a cutting grown dahlia is a completely different beast to a tuber grown one, even a divided tuber. So that's our method from now. And what we do is we save one cutting in a litre pot, and we grow it on in that litre pot, look after it, but not that much. And then that will be in the mother plant for next year, ideally. We'll probably pick out one from the field as well. But it means that we can store all of our dahlias. We grow 100 different varieties in a space of about 1.5 meters square. So it's very much easy to not kill them over winter, which we are past masters at doing. So we've got Café au lait here. Now, this is possibly the most difficult dahlia to grow. Some people may disagree, but for us, it's a nightmare. The chances of having a bud that faces in the right direction are very slim. So you have to go in and individually remove the buds that are facing downwards or outwards or look like they're going to be a half one. And it's the one dahlia which pretty much always gets eaten by wasps as well. The stems get eaten by wasps. And yeah, we do have to grow it basically because it's on Pinterest, and it's going to be on Pinterest forever. And even if it goes out of fashion, it's still going to be on Pinterest forever. So we do, brides want to have a Café au lait. But yeah, as I say, it is a fuss. What else have we got here? This is a gorgeous variety that came from the National Dahlia Collection while it was still up and running down in Penzance. This is Courton Bess, and she has this way of fading so that it ends up looking like a faded velvet. Absolutely gorgeous piece. So very fond of cotton best. I don't think it's that freely available. This is Preference, which is everywhere and is one of those stalwarts. Very useful. It can either be pink or slightly apricot, and it can take color schemes in various directions. Very useful. Trooper. I think this is La Recolette, but deep burgundy flowers, very popular again, principally because of their gorgeous velvety texture, I think. They're quite difficult to incorporate into a bouquet because they vanish. And on a a photograph of a bridal bouquet, it'll look like a black hole. So you have to kind of be quite careful how you place them, but immensely popular. This is Karma Fuchsiana, which refuses to be a double form for us. It just opens up as a single, which the bees absolutely adore. Either way, dahlias are a big part of what we do. It's how we started, and I'm sure it'll carry on that way for a while. So having a quick glimpse now into the polytunnel. This is the celosia which we grow. You can see in the background different types of celosia. I'm not so sure about some of the celosias, but this one's rather fun. And again, it's a great cut as fresh or as dried. I'm very fond of that. Now, so funeral flowers. Again, not something we'd even thought of when we started doing the whole business. And we sadly got asked to do funeral flowers for a friend's son who had sadly killed himself. And it was extraordinary, really. It was deeply moving to be asked to do the flowers for our friends. And it's something I really love doing. We get to meet absolutely extraordinary people. You hear wonderful life stories. Very often they'll want something maybe incorporated from their own garden. So we'll go and do a little bit of scavenging in the garden. Or in this case, from the hedgerows around for a young lad who loved the countryside. So yeah, funeral flowers can be great fun. And also a very sad moment, but it's lovely to be able to do them, and it is oddly a big part of what we do. Zinnias, yes. I'd never grown a zinnia before we started the farm, and I wasn't at all sure about them. I was very, very rapidly changed, in my opinion. These are the Queen Red Lime and Queen Orange Lime series, which are tremendously popular. People love those sort of muted tones, the in-between tones. Again, it works with lots of different color ways. So that's a very useful one for us. Now, we used to grow our zinnias outside in the field. They probably get to about 18 inches and then rot off and give up at the first sign of chilly weather. We accidentally grew them in the polytunnel last year. We grew one in the polytunnel last year, and it survived the 50-degree heat in there. And we now have 8-foot tall zinnias in the polytunnel. Huge long stems, 1-meter-long stems. Absolutely wonderful. So this is Zinnia Envy, fantastic greens, very popular, and just a random seedling. So next year we will be sowing more of our self-sown seeds. It's worth noting that Floret in Pacific Northwest of Canada are doing fantastic breeding with zinnias, and so you can expect to see some really interesting colorways emerging from them. If we could only buy the seed in this country, thank you, Brexit. So yes, still have some blues and purples and things like that around in September. It's surprising what color palette you can pull off the field at any given time. So we've got cat and ash there, verbenas, good old Salvia viridis, linarias, common field scabious. We'll try and grow as many natives as we possibly can. So field scabious is right up there on the list. Here's some cafe au laits with a bit of ghastly gypsophila. Ooh, I need to take that one out. Chance to use some of the deep burgundy foliage of Amaranthus. Now, Amaranthus we have only sown once in the garden, and it became a really very serious weed after we left it to go to seed. That and Atriplex, which is also in this picture. But they form a fantastic fall for really deep, burning, glowing colours. So we won't be able to stop growing it. It just comes up. We have introduced quite an interesting selection of weeds to the plot. October, we're still going strong. Now, can you believe that you could get that degree of almost spring-like quality to a bouquet in October? So you can see a lovely silvery grey ferny foliage in there, which is the Tanacetum called silver lace. never flowers in this country, but it's got this gorgeous filigree silver foliage, along with a bit of our eucalyptus, various verbascums, feverfew, cosmos. Cosmos, one of these plants which, again, they take a huge amount of work to keep them in good condition. Helen's done an amazing job this year keeping them fresh. There is a lot of deadheading on the farm. We do spend a lot of time deadheading. This would be an example of a flower crown. So for one of our weddings, they are quite fiddly to do, and we use dried flowers as much as we can for anything like corsage, buttonholes, anything that has to be out of water. And we do get some funny requests. We had to do bridal hoops. We'd never heard of a bridal hoop, so we had to very rapidly Google that. What we didn't realize that the bridal hoops would really be used as frisbees, part of the wedding ceremony. So to see the video of these, our wedding hoops being thrown across, they weren't in the brief. Luckily, I'd glued the flowers on. We had to do bridal tambourines a couple of years ago as well, which and the effect was quite as ghastly as you can imagine. Everybody at the wedding had a tambourine. It was the noisiest of weddings. And last year we got asked to do best men's sporrans, so floral sporrans. Now, that was an interesting commission to do, and I could have had a lot of fun with it, but I was told to behave, and so actually it was quite a modest display in the end. But yeah, so we get a lot of interesting requests. So chrysanthemums. So we're just coming up to chrysanthemum time here now. And I, along with an awful lot of the percentage of the country, have got real prejudice against chrysanthemums because of their garage forecourt reputation. The reality is far from that, of course. And this one, I think I bought in Waitrose, actually. It was a little tiny dwarf pot plant, which they treat with some dwarfing compound. And you take cuttings of it, and suddenly you've got a 4-foot green spider chrysanthemum. So spiders are lovely. You can get them in bronze, creams, whites. We buy cuttings from the wonderful halls of Hedden up in Northumberland, and they are fantastic for chrysanthemums, but also for for dahlias. So they're our favourite dahlia supplier, and we buy cuttings or pot tubers from them. But they are absolutely excellent with a fantastic range of varieties. But yes, I'm sold on chrysanthemums. This is one of the Aloise series, I think, an Aloise red. This is Avignon pink, which is so unlike a chrysanthemum, and in those sort of cafe au lait tones, brilliant. So that we'll have those in flower now till possibly, well, depending on the weather, right the way into November. So we've got those outside as well as inside. And again, another one of the Aloise salmon. And asters, of course, outside. Hesperanthera, we don't use it a lot, but it's in the garden and it does get used occasionally. And then, of course, we get onto the frosts. And we're in a little bit of a frost pocket where we are. So we've moved our dahlias further up the hill this year. But we have had some very early frosts. This is September the 25th, this was. Yeah, we had a very big wedding 2 weeks after this first frost, and we were panicking. It looked gorgeous for a couple of hours, but the whole field went black. So we cut it hard back, but they came back. And in 2 weeks' time, we had more flowers. But yeah, let's hope our first frost is a little later. They do look glorious for a while, but yeah. Quick, brief look into the world of drieds. This is what the inside of our grain silo looks like at the moment. So a huge range of different things. It turns out that dried flowers, they need to dry quickly and they need to dry in the dark, and silo is, of course, perfect for that. Keeping them dry afterwards is a little bit difficult in our damp valley, but this is where we dry them and then we pack them up in boxes. And dried flowers are very popular. So we do a lot of dried flower bouquets. We do dried flower weddings, which is wonderful because you can do those in advance. So some of the drieds, this is rat-tail status. Fantastic, crazy plant. Everybody loves it. It's one of those plants that children adore. Then lots and lots of status, limonium, and wonderful helichrysum. So I think that's probably about it, Noel. So should I get rid of the presentation here?
Yep, if you can come out of the...
I can do that.
Yeah.
Bear with me for 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about this. I'll go.
Okay.
Oh, I can do that. Can you do it? No.
One point.
Oh,
Great, fantastic. Gosh,
oh,
you grow some amazing stuff. I mean,
thanks, Noel.
you have to do a lot of trialing.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
imagine you do. Big risk.
Well, it is, but I mean, we will grow. I'm always looking for new things, really. So any excuse to go to some gorgeous nursery and see something, see if it works. So all the time trying different things.
Great. And in terms of the breeding and the production of new varieties, there seems to be quite a lot coming on to the market. Although I must admit, some of the things I've tried from certain much praised seed suppliers have been sort of less than satisfactory. But I mean, do you feel that the amount of new stuff coming on from breeders is at a sort of sufficiently good rate, or that it's things that look good but perhaps don't grow well?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really come across any particularly bad examples, but I think there is a lot of stuff being produced as it's now a global movement. Opulent seasonal flowers, then there's a lot of breeding going on, and I think a lot of growers are breeding as well themselves.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
People like Philippa Stewart of Just Dahlias up in Cheshire. She's embarked on a fantastic dahlia breeding program, and she's having some amazing results. Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Philippa's quite interesting in that she grows principally for dried. So her cottage up in Cheshire is a sea of the most glorious dahlias hanging from the ceiling.
Dried dahlias?
Yes, it's a weird thing. They're a bit niche.
Yes,
but there are certain varieties which don't look particularly fabulous fresh, but actually dried look fantastic.
How interesting! Gosh.
Yeah, and the colours change as well, and it's something that's pretty fashionable at the moment.
Yeah. So I mean, what's the proportions between annuals and perennials?
We try to grow as many perennials as possible. Now, obviously, we've got to grow annuals because you've got to grow snapdragons, things like that. But we find, because we don't water, really perennials that will get their roots down are infinitely preferable. Plus, they bulk up so satisfactorily.
Yes.
So things like phlox and gyms, all sorts really. But we always keep an eye on what everybody else is growing, because there are so many fabulous growers out there. And there are people you think if you're growing it, then it's got to be worth as it were.
And why do you think there are so few male flower farmers?
I have absolutely no idea. They're missing out. This is fantastic occupation. It is funny, isn't it? I don't quite understand that. This is one of my pet peeves, is the fact that more people aren't pulled into horticulture at an early age. We meet an awful lot of people who have gone into horticulture or floristry, having had another career, but have always wanted to be working with flowers. But somehow the career path wasn't there for them when they left school. And I think that's still woefully lacking. I think more young people have got to be pushed into horticulture. Well, not pushed, with open arms. It's a fantastic life.
Yes. I mean, hopefully this RHS Schools Garden Programme will encourage them.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I think this should be their fundamental task, frankly, is to really encourage the next generation. Because it's... once exposed to it, I think it's a fantastic life, and there are a lot of brilliant jobs. I think the demand for head gardeners and so on has never been higher. I think as we become more aware of environmental issues as well, and the need for small farms and small local farms, then I think there's going to be a lot more interest. And it's also, flower farming is one of those businesses where you can get started relatively cheaply. You don't have to own land. You can rent land off a farmer if you're lucky. We're actually in partnership with our farmer. Slightly different setup, but it works very, very well for both of us. So we're really pleased with that.
Brilliant. Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Paul. We'll look forward to getting that up onto YouTube, and a lot of people, I'm sure, will love those fantastic images, and good to hear about the dried flowers as well, which I must admit I've always liked. It's one of those things you have to be sort of careful who you say that to, because it's still a bit uncool. No,
well, it certainly was when I was a child. I can remember, every fireplace had a dusty, spider-strewn beige arrangement.
Yes.
I think we can do it a little bit better than that now, but yeah.
Good. Well, marvelous. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Noel. Thanks for asking me.
All the best. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.